Imagine a world with no bars, no hangovers, no grocery stores. You're a hunter-gatherer, walking through an open field more than 12,000 years ago. You stumble across a stone hollow or an old basket where wild grain had been left out, completely forgotten, and rained on a week ago. It smells strange and sharp. The surface is bubbling. To a modern eye, it looks completely rotten. But you are starving. Food is scarce, and every calorie is a matter of life or death. So you look past the foam, scoop it up, and drink it anyway. 20 minutes later, something entirely unexpected happens. A warmth spreads through your chest. The constant, hypervigilant anxiety of surviving in a world full of apex predators begins to fade. Your surroundings look a little softer, and your mind feels unusually calm. Some scientists believe this single, accidental moment completely altered the trajectory of human life on Earth. Because here is the radical historical theory that sounds completely insane until you look at the evidence. Humans did not abandon their free, nomadic lives to start farming because they wanted to bake bread. We forced ourselves into hard labor, cleared the wilderness, and invented agriculture because we desperately wanted to get drunk. For decades, the standard history textbook story told us that the birth of civilization followed a very logical, clean sequence. First, nomadic hunter-gatherers grew tired of wandering. Second, they noticed wild wheat and barley growing, settled down, and built permanent farms to secure a steady supply of bread. Third, once they had surplus grain sitting in storage, they accidentally discovered fermentation and made beer as a happy byproduct. It is a beautiful story, but it is completely wrong. Over the last several years, groundbreaking discoveries in molecular archaeology have turned this timeline entirely upside down. The evidence suggests that beer is not a consequence of civilization. Beer is the absolute catalyst that created it. To understand why this is true, we have to look much deeper into our biological past, long before humans even knew what a grain of wheat looked like. The human love affair with alcohol isn't a modern cultural corruption. It is hardwired into our DNA through millions of years of evolution. Biologists point to a concept called the drunken monkey hypothesis. Roughly 10 million years ago, our primate ancestors in the tree canopies of Africa faced a changing climate that shrank the forests. Food became incredibly scarce. To survive, some primates had to do something highly dangerous: drop out of the trees and search for fallen fruit on the dark, competitive forest floor. The problem was that fruit sitting on the ground for days naturally rots. Airborne wild yeasts eat the sugars inside the fruit, transforming those sugars into ethanol. For almost every animal on Earth, eating fermented, alcohol-heavy food is incredibly dangerous. It slows down your reflexes, confuses your senses, and makes you an incredibly easy target for a passing predator. But our ancestors developed a biological cheat code. A massive genetic mutation occurred in our lineage, specifically altering a gene called ADH4. This single mutation boosted our ancestors' ability to break down and metabolize alcohol by a staggering 40 times compared to other primates. The alcohol wasn't a fun vice, it was an evolutionary advantage. It allowed early humans to eat calorie-dense, fermenting food that would literally poison or incapacitate their competitors. Our brains learned to associate the smell of fermenting sugars with a massive jackpot of energy. We didn't evolve a taste for alcohol because we wanted to party. We evolved it because it kept us from starving. But there is a massive leap between eating a piece of rotten fruit on the ground and systematically brewing a beverage. For a long time, historians argued that you couldn't brew beer without a permanent kitchen, pottery, and cultivated fields. Then came the discovery at Reykjavik Cave. Located in the Carmel Mountains of modern-day Israel, this ancient site belonged to the Natufians, a fascinating society of semi-nomadic hunter-gatherers who lived 13,000 years ago. Stanford University archeologists excavated the cave floor and analyzed the microscopic residues trapped inside deep stone mortars carved directly into the bedrock. They weren't looking for alcohol, but when they ran the chemical analyses, they found the distinct, unmistakable signatures of malted barley and starch granules that had been subjected to enzymatic attack and fermentation. The Natufians were running an extensive, highly organized beer brewing operation 13,000 years ago. This find is monumental because it predates the earliest known evidence of domesticated agricultural grain by several millennia. They were going out into the wilderness, painstakingly harvesting wild, uncultivated grasses, bringing them back to a cave, and using a complex three-stage process: sprouting the grain to create malt, mashing it, and letting wild yeast ferment it, just to create a crude, gruel-like beer. Crucially, Reykjavik Cave was not a normal living village. It was a graveyard. The stone brewing vats were surrounded by dozens of ancient tombs. The Natufians were investing massive amounts of time and physical energy into a highly sophisticated chemical process, not for a casual daily meal, but to fuel grand spiritual rituals honoring their dead. If you want to see what happens when this desire for ritual brewing scales up to an industrial level, you have to travel north to a hill in southeastern Turkey called Göbekli Tepe. Dating back 11,500 years, Gobekli Tepe is widely considered the oldest known monumental stone structure on Earth. It is 6,000 years older than Stonehenge and 7,000 years older than the Great Pyramids. The site features massive T-shaped limestone pillars weighing up to 20 tons each, arranged in giant concentric circles and carved with intricate, terrifying images of wild animals like scorpions, lions, and vultures. When archaeologists first uncovered the site, it broke all the rules of history. There are absolutely no signs of permanent domestic life here. No houses, no kitchens, no water sources, and absolutely zero evidence of domesticated crops. The people who built this massive complex were pure hunter-gatherers. How did nomadic groups, who usually wandered in tiny bands of 20 or 30 people, manage to coordinate, house, and feed hundreds or thousands of workers to carve and move 20-ton stones using only rope and muscle? The answer lay in the corners of the structures. Archaeologists excavated 6 giant limestone vessels, some capable of holding up to 40 gallons of liquid. When scientists analyzed the interior surfaces of these massive stone troughs, they found chemical residues of calcium oxalate, a stubborn, crusty byproduct that forms specifically during the brewing of grain alcohol. The timeline of human history suddenly clicked into place. Gobekli Tepe wasn't a city. It was a regional mega-sanctuary and festival ground. To get hundreds of independent, highly defensive hunter-gatherer groups to cooperate and build a monument, you needed a massive social incentive. You needed a reason for them to drop their weapons, let their guard down, and work together. That incentive was a massive ritualistic feast powered by endless amounts of roasted meat and primitive beer. It turns out that geneticists tracking the origin of agriculture discovered that the single oldest strain of domesticated einkorn wheat on Earth can be traced back to a specific mountain range located right next to Gobekli Tepe. The physical need to secure massive quantities of grain to fuel these enormous religious festivals is very likely the exact reason humans eventually stopped relying on wild patches of grass and intentionally began planting the very first crops. The field of agriculture was born from a desire to scale up the brewery. This wasn't a localized phenomenon either. This bizarre human behavior pattern happened globally, completely independently. 9,000 years ago, in a completely separate valley called Jiahu in China, early communities were doing the exact same thing. Scientists testing ancient pottery shards discovered chemical traces of a fermented drink made from a blend of wild rice, honey, and hawthorn fruit. Thousands of miles apart, with zero communication, completely different human cultures arrived at the exact same conclusion. Take the local plants, let them ferment, and drink the liquid. But why beer? Why did this specific liquid hold such an intense grip on the development of our species? The reason is that ancient beer was vastly different from the clear, cold beverage you buy in a glass bottle today. Ancient beer was essentially liquid bread. It was a thick, unfiltered, highly nutritious gruel that was incredibly rich in B vitamins, essential amino acids, and active proteins. For an ancient human, drinking a bowl of fermented grain fluid was actually far healthier and easier to digest than eating raw or poorly cooked grains. More importantly, it solved a terrifying biological crisis: water quality. Before modern sanitation, plumbing, and filtration, drinking water from a local river or stagnant pond was a massive gamble. Water was a hotbed for lethal parasites and waterborne pathogens. But the process of brewing beer requires boiling the liquid with grains, and the resulting fermentation creates alcohol and acidity, which naturally kill off harmful bacteria. For thousands of years, beer wasn't a way to ruin your health. It was the only liquid safe enough to keep you alive. As human societies grew larger and transitioned into the first true empires of Mesopotamia and Egypt, beer shifted from a sacred ritual tool into the literal economic foundation of the state. In ancient Sumer, beer was used as standard official currency. The workers who spent their days laboring under a scorching sun to build the grand mud brick temples and ziggurats were not paid in gold or silver. They were paid in daily rations of beer. It was a perfect system for rulers. It provided their workforce with safe hydration, critical calories, and a built-in mood booster that kept the population compliant. By the time the Code of Hammurabi was written in Babylon around 1750 BC, beer was so vital to the stability of the empire that the state officially regulated it. Hammurabi established strict laws dictating that any tavern owner who watered down their beer or overcharged customers would be executed by being drowned in a river. The Sumerians loved the beverage so much they created Ninkasi, the official goddess of brewing. The oldest known beer recipe in human history isn't written on a standard instruction tablet. It is preserved inside a 4,000-year-old holy poem called the Hymn to Ninkasi. The priests and citizens sang this religious hymn collectively, not just to worship, but because repeating the verses was the only way a society without printing presses could accurately memorize the exact, delicate steps needed to successfully brew the drink. For almost the entirety of our collective history, drinking alcohol was an inherently collective, deeply social act. Strangers shared a communal vat using long reeds or straws to drink past the floating grain husks on top. It was an ancient social technology designed to forge deep trust, create artificial kinship, and force a fiercely competitive, anxious animal to cooperate on a massive scale. Now look at what we have turned it into. Something that once required an entire community, a collective harvest, a massive religious ritual, a sacred stone sanctuary, and a hymn to a goddess, has been stripped down to its bare chemistry. Today, you can walk into a sterile store, buy mass-produced cans from an automated machine, and drink them completely alone in a dark room while staring at a digital screen, without speaking to a single human soul. We perfectly mastered the industrial chemistry of fermentation, but somewhere along the way, we completely lost the social meaning. The oldest human societies we know about built breathtaking monuments, gathered by the thousands in the wilderness, and potentially invented the entire concept of farming because they wanted to share an altered state of consciousness and build a unified community. So the next time you crack a drink open, hopefully in the company of someone else, take a moment to look at what you are actually holding in your hand. It isn't a modern habit. It isn't a casual product of industrial manufacturing. It is a direct, unbroken thread connecting you back to a prehistoric campfire circle. It is one of the oldest, most foundational rituals our species ever invented to survive the dark.